If your team is still cranking out one-off JPEG banners, today's episode might change your entire workflow. We're digging into how high-performing banner ads are built in 2026 across Google, Meta, LinkedIn, and more without burning out your designers. Guest, can you kick us off with what's fundamentally changed about banner production today?
The big shift is that banners aren't static files anymore. They're flexible HTML5 systems. You design a few master creatives, then use a production platform to turn those into all the sizes and formats you need for Google Display, Meta, LinkedIn, and even retail media.
So before anyone starts pushing pixels, what needs to be in place to avoid endless rework?
You need 4 things ready: your media plan and targeting strategy, your brand assets, a master creative concept, and a proper production infrastructure. That means knowing your channels and objectives, having logos and brand book handy, one clear campaign idea, and a platform that can handle HTML5 display production at scale.
Let's talk sizes, because that's where people get overwhelmed. How do you pick banner dimensions that cover Google, Meta, and LinkedIn without ending up with 40 separate designs?
You start with a small system of master sizes instead of designing everything individually. For Google's fixed units, you cover 300 by 250, 728 by 90, 160 by 600, and 970 by 250. Then, responsive display needs horizontal, square, and vertical masters like 1200 by 628, 1200 by 1200, and 900 by 1600. On Meta, the core sizes are 1080 by 1080 and 1080 by 1350 for feed, plus 1080 by 1920 for stories and reels, and a 320 by 50 for audience network banners. LinkedIn relies on 1200 by 628, 1080 by 1080, 1080 by 1350 for single image ads, and 300 by 250 for companion banners.
That's a lot of numbers. But you're not saying designers should build each one from scratch, right? What's the short list of masters a campaign really needs?
Typically, you choose one square master, one horizontal, one vertical, and one core display unit. For example, 1080 by 1080, 1200 by 628, 1080 by 1920, and 300 by 250. Then let a platform like Viewst auto-resize the rest via AI Smart Resize so designers aren't manually rebuilding layouts.
Once those masters exist, how do you design them so they actually get seen and understood in the wild?
You design around viewability standards, particularly the MRC rules. Display is counted as viewable when at least 50% of the pixels are on screen for one continuous second, so you need your logo and CTA visible immediately, not at the end of a slow buildup. Practically, that means a clear hierarchy with one strong benefit in the headline, a supporting line, and a short CTA, like Start Free Trial. You keep text minimal on images. Respect Google's guidance to avoid heavy overlays and collages, and enforce brand fonts and colors through brand books in your production platform.
You also talk about designing one master creative per audience cluster, which feels more strategic than just making generic banners. How does that work in practice?
You define 2 to 4 audience clusters, like new prospects, free trial users, enterprise buyers, and returning customers. For each cluster, you create a master concept with consistent layout and animation, then swap headlines, visuals, and CTAs so media teams get structured variants for A/B testing without chaos.
Okay, so we've got concepts and masters. Walk me through the production step. How does a designer go from a Figma file to a full multi-channel banner set?
You import your Figma or Adobe file into a production studio like Viewst and map layers to editable elements, text fields, images, buttons, backgrounds. If you only have flat JPEGs, you can use AI image deflattening to turn those into editable HTML5 layouts, which is huge for legacy assets. From there, you pick a master size, say 1080 by 1080, and use AI Smart Resize to automatically generate Google units, Meta feed and story sizes, and LinkedIn formats. You then review each auto layout to ensure text isn't cut and the focal points of imagery are aligned properly.
Brand teams get nervous about scaling because they fear everything will drift off brand. How do you keep dozens of variants tight against the brand?
You govern everything with brand books and templates inside the platform. That means locking typography scales, color tokens, logo placement, and having channel-specific templates so each market can localize copy without breaking the visual system.
Let's shift to motion, because animation can boost performance but also break specs if you're not careful. What are the key constraints designers need to know for HTML5 and GIF banners?
The strictest constraints usually come from Google's specs for image and GIF ads: 150 kilobyte max file size, animation under 30 seconds, and a frame rate below 5 FPS. HTML5 banners are more flexible and can include more files, but you still want them light. Meta allows up to roughly 30 megabytes per image and LinkedIn around 5 megabytes, so Google is your anchor.
Given those limits, what does good animation look like in 2026?
You aim for 10 to 15 second loops and make sure the core message shows up in the first 1 to 2 seconds. Use subtle motion, fade-ins, slide-ins, gentle parallax, rather than aggressive zooms or flickering, and keep the number of animated elements per frame low to avoid visual noise and heavy files. Tools like Viewst's AI Instant Animator let you select layers to animate and apply presets across all sizes, keeping timing consistent while the system optimizes file weight.
A practical issue I hear a lot is, we built a nice HTML5 banner, but some networks only take GIFs. How do you convert without reanimating every size by hand?
You finish the HTML5 animation once, then use the export panel in your production studio to output animated GIFs per size. You set parameters like max duration, frame rate, and compression so you stay under that 150 kilobyte limit for Google, and the platform simply converts the motion instead of you rebuilding it. From a single master, you can also export HTML5 for programmatic display, GIF for email or legacy systems, and MP4 for video-like placements, such as Reels and Stories.
Let's zoom back out to strategy for a moment. How do you make sure these banners actually map to your targeting and campaign goals, instead of just being pretty pictures?
You define a clear creative-to-segment mapping for each audience. Ask who it's for, where they are in the journey, and what action you want. Then design awareness banners around high-level value and softer CTAs, consideration banners with features and social proof, and retention banners with personalized offers.
That's a lot of moving parts. Is there a practical checklist marketers can run through before launching a multi-channel banner campaign?
Yes, treat it like a pre-flight checklist. Confirm you have a master creative per segment, sizes mapped to each channel, animation tested against file limits, brand book applied, UTM tracking planned, and A/B variants set up for headlines, CTAs, and visuals.
Once everything's approved, how does the handoff to Google, Meta, and LinkedIn actually work?
For Google Ads or Demand Gen, you upload HTML5 zips for rich banners, plus GIF or static images, and provide responsive display assets with the right aspect ratios and text combinations. On Meta, you upload the feed, stories, and audience network banners, staying within file size limits. LinkedIn gets the single image formats and 300 by 250 companion banners with intro text and headlines aligned to their character guidelines.
A lot of teams still manage assets with random folders and email threads, which obviously doesn't scale. What's the more modern approach?
You centralize assets in one library, like within Viewst, and tag them by campaign, segment, and channel. Stakeholders review and approve inside that environment, and APIs then reuse assets across platforms instead of you hunting for files in different systems.
And then there's measurement. How should teams connect performance data back to creative so they can actually improve the banners over time?
You apply consistent naming conventions and UTM parameters and map creative IDs to campaign IDs in Google, Meta, and LinkedIn.
Then, you regularly pull metrics like CTR, conversion rate, and viewability by size and segment. Retire low performers, iterate on headlines and CTAs, and use AI tools like AI Designer to quickly generate new structured HTML5 concepts to test.
It sounds like the real unlock is treating banners as infrastructure rather than one-off tasks. What does creative automation look like when it's fully operationalized?
You build a repeatable stack, a display ad platform at the center, enforced brand books, templates per channel and segment, audience data feeds, and a measurement layer that ties creative to results. Viewst, for example, sits between Figma or Adobe and your media platforms, handling AI smart resize, image deflattening, designer, instant animator, true WYSIWYG editing, and exports to HTML5, GIF, and MP4. That means senior creatives focus on ideas and craft, while the system handles resizing, animation, and multi-market rollout, giving brands control and scale without adding headcount.
To wrap up, if a listener wants to upgrade their banner ads this quarter, what's the first concrete move they should make?
Define a small set of master sizes, build one strong master concept per audience segment, and put a production studio in place to automate resizes and animation. From there, align your creative with your targeting strategy and measurement, and you'll go from sporadic JPEGs to a consistent, high-performing multi-channel banner system.
That's a great roadmap for anyone trying to modernize their display advertising in 2026. Thanks for breaking it down, and thanks to everyone listening. Go turn those banners into infrastructure, not busy work, and we'll see you next time.